You, Derek, for so eloquently trying to categorize who I am and what I do. Um, what I do for many people in Baltimore is I advocate for them, those individuals who find themselves on the opposite side of the law, those individuals who are in our communities very disadvantaged, those individuals who do not have some of the same access as many of us have in this room. And one of the things that we stand on, those of us who are in the legal community, those of us who may not be attorneys but practice and educate ourselves about the law, is that there is a presumption of innocence. And just like many of us, Ms. Mosby deserves that as well. One of my colleagues talked about staying out of people's personal business. This is not about the fact that Ms. Mosby didn't do her job as a prosecutor. This is about the media and the public deciding to stick their nose in somebody's personal matters. Throughout my years working in advocacy, Ms. Mosby has done more in terms of standing on the presumption of innocence than many of her predecessors, right? She has been open to advocating for laws and policies that seek to change the way our bail system and our pretrial system operates. She was one of the only prosecutors that I saw during a global pandemic urging our governor to release those individuals whose charges will likely be dropped in the first place, who encouraged our governor to send resources here to Baltimore as opposed to talking about how bad this city is. It was her that said, Governor, bring resources to the city. Ensure that individuals have access. It was this woman who brought herself to Annapolis on her own accord to ensure that individuals who found themselves on the wrong end of the gun trace task force, that they would be financially compensated for some of the ills that gun trace task force bestowed on Baltimore residents. There are people still suffering today because of a group of law enforcement officers who decided that they would treat people any kind of way. And so because she decided that these individuals should be brought to justice, there are people who are making a decision that because she went against that status quo, that we're going to show her who we are. That's essentially what they're saying. That because this woman decided to stand on the right side of justice, that they're going to show her that that's not okay for black women to do. And so I just want to make sure that the citizens of Baltimore withhold your judgment. Because just like you deserve the presumption of innocence, so does she. And so I know that there are formerly incarcerated people across this city who have turned their lives around. Because let's be clear, this is not a woman who is just supporting people who break the law, right? She is supporting individuals who have made a decision to turn their lives around. And that is who she supports, right? So she's not a person who's just supporting any old criminal out here. No, she's supporting individuals who have made some bad choices but decided to turn their lives around. One of the only prosecutors I know in the state that actually has a victim's integrity unit, right? That individuals, and I hope I'm saying the name of the office right, but she's willing. What's the name of? Yes, yes, right? And also, she's been a part of bringing individuals home who have served decades behind the walls because of unjust legal system. The office is actually working. One of the only state's attorneys that I know who actually supports individuals, young people who find themselves on the opposite side of the law, and gives them an opportunity to rebuild their lives because she know what they're facing out there in the streets of Baltimore. So again, let's make sure as the public we withhold judgment and allow for the legal system to do what the legal system does. And let's remember that she deserves the presumption of innocence. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, and again, thank you, media, for being here. Our community needs heroes. We need someone who has the expertise, who has the experience, who has the relationships to call injustice, injustice, and then to put together a legal case to ensure that justice is indeed preserved. The gentleman who I have the pleasure of bringing before you has been called to this moment. And again, I'll tell you, the backdrop of this is Dr. King. We're on Dr. King's holiday, and we're having a conversation about justice. We're having a conversation about freedom. We're having a conversation about equality. We're having a conversation about the American dream and those who are called to make sure it happens, such as a Marilyn Mosby. We are called to this on this day. But the gentleman who I'm calling before you now has the responsibility to make sure that Maryland gets a fair shot. Let's welcome to the microphone her attorney, Attorney Bolden. Thank you.
Good evening or good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. That's right, absolutely. I want to thank all of our speakers who are here, who stand with Marilyn Mosby. If you are here and you stand with Marilyn Mosby, join me in saying, I stand with Marilyn Mosby. 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 One more time. I stand with Marilyn Mosby. Let me thank you all for being here today. This is an important time for the city of Baltimore. On behalf of Marilyn Mosby, I thank you for being here. Many of you asked me, how is Marilyn doing? She's a tough prosecutor herself. She's got a family. She's been through a lot this year. She's built for this, but she's also a humble public servant. Every day, she gets up to serve the people for the state of Baltimore and for the city of Baltimore. I don't want you to forget that. She is the chief law enforcement officer for the city of Baltimore, a state elected official who's being charged 4 months before her re-election campaign. 4 months before her re-election campaign to affect and in effect the result of that campaign. Let's not be confused about it. Let's not be confused about it. I've been on this journey with Marilyn and her family for several months, over a year. This case started as a criminal tax investigation. The government put that in writing, if you will. They teamed up with the State Bar Association Disciplinary Board because she wouldn't give the state board She wouldn't give them backup to her 2019 and 2020 tax returns. And by the way, the 2020 tax returns had not been filed. She didn't have to give those up. And so the U.S. Attorney's Office for Maryland went to them, talked with them, and then began a criminal tax investigation investigating her taxes. I'm going to talk about animus in a minute, but everything I tell you today ties into the animus. They opened up a criminal tax investigation simply because she would not produce backup to an agency that did not deserve them legally. They then investigated not only campaign finance, they went to her babysitters, they went to her hairdressers, they went to her friends, they went to churches challenging charitable contributions. Listen to me. I'm going to talk about animus in a minute. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars gratuitously investigating a sitting public servant who filed their taxes and went line by line regarding charitable contributions. Who does that? Who does that? Marilyn Mosby stands today as an innocent person. I don't care whether she's been indicted or not. She is an innocent person. And she is not a convicted person, public, private, or judicially. Marilyn Mosby is innocent as we stand here with these community leaders. They then referred the criminal tax case to DOJ to get approval for it. And that's the first time we saw the recommendations for charges. One of the recommendations in regard to her tax returns were for her tax year 2020 returns, right? This was in 2021. Except one problem. She hadn't even filed her taxes for tax year 2020. And they were alleging a loss or a subject amount of money of $4,000 or $12,000, and she hadn't even filed her taxes yet. I'm going to talk about animus in a minute. They did ask, and they did also on their recommendation sheet to DOJ, they talked about perjury. And I'm going to talk about due process in a minute. They recommended a charge for perjury. At the one meeting we had with DOJ that's allowed under the law, we asked them a simple question. My warrior lawyer friend, where's my warrior lawyer? Right here. We asked them, we said, well, what's the statement? You know, if you got perjury under the law, you got to have a statement. So tell us the statement. You can't prosecute my client for perjury and give her due process and some reasonableness and fairness. And 8 prosecutors sat in that meeting with us and refused to tell us the statement upon which she was accused of lying about. How can that be? This is a sitting, publicly elected official, and they're accusing her of perjury now, false statements now, and I can tell you, all 4 charges are false. I can tell you we have exculpatory evidence that we wanted to share with them, did share with them. We offered her up to the grand jury. We offered her up to be interviewed. But when you're not interested in justice and fairness and equity, you don't take those meetings. You ignore the numerous emails. You probably don't read the defense memorandum because you want a conviction and an indictment at all costs, not because you think she's guilty. Oh no, that's too hard under the law. You do that because you want to affect the reelection 4 or 5 months out while she's in full campaign mode and have 2 opponents. That brings me to Leo Wise. He's so special. He's so special. In the last election, the lead prosecutor, the driver of the negative narrative, he gives not once but twice to her opponents 4 years ago. Sees nothing wrong with that, right? The prior beef between them and the gun trace and who's leaking and what, they beefed before. He then gives 2 contributions, not 1. We go to DOJ, Office of Professional Responsibility, and we say this needs to be investigated. He needs to be removed from the case, and there needs to be an internal investigation on why, how, who, and what drove this investigation of Marilyn Mosby. We know it started during the Trump campaign or during the Trump leadership. We know that Donald Trump called for her to be prosecuted. We know his AG singled her out before a police conference about her job and being a progressive, liberal prosecutor who does her job, but not like the conservatives or the status quo. Bringing some equity to how you prosecute crimes, right? Because black people and brown people are significantly affected negatively by the old way, by the conservative way, by the black versus white way, right? Absolutely. So she's going to change that narrative. She's going to stop prosecuting prostitutes. She's going to stop prosecuting low-level drug offenses. And the numbers in this city, despite what you hear and read and what you all write, those numbers are down. And that's not me saying that. That's the reports from the college reported at Johns Hopkins. And so no one would investigate Leo Wise. There was a new attorney, new U.S. attorney, Eric Barron. We asked him to investigate. We gave him everything and said, give us a meeting. Refused to meet with us. We offered her up for a grand jury, an interview, refused to even respond. These are the forces. These are the dark forces that we are up against. These are facts, too. This isn't some conjecture by some criminal defense lawyer because of the rantings of a criminal defense lawyer. These are facts. There are documents to support this. And so my client has been through a lot. Legal fees, friendships affected, her inability to give 100% to serve in the residence because it's either the state ethics boards or it's the Bar Association or it's a U.S. Attorney's Office. And by the way, she's not driving this negative narrative, right? Those agencies are. And we know that goes back to her choice to prosecute police officers in regard to Freddie Gray. I don't care what the outcome was. There's some cases, I'm a former prosecutor, there's some cases where cases have to be tried and done. Justice has to be served. And so when you talk about racial animus in this case, we know that Leo Wise, based on published reports, served in the Office of Congressional Ethics and targeted Congressional Black Caucus members. He left there, and his newest target is Marilyn Mosby. We know there's personal animus because of personal beefs about turf and the gun tracer piece between them. And then there's political animus, the contributions that were given. And the political animus is that he and others in the law enforcement community certainly don't want her to get another term. Well, I'm here to tell you, Marilyn Mosby is not going to be the only one on trial. And we want a quick trial. We're ready to go. The quickest is 70 days, right? Election's 5 months away. Others believe that it'll go 6 months or a year. Oh, we're pushing for trial in 70 days, right? Because we don't want this to affect the political outcome of this race. And so we're going to try to get a trial as soon as possible. But Marilyn Mosby is not the only one that's going to be on trial. The U.S. Attorney's Office for Maryland is going to be on trial. The criminal justice system and its attacks on black female progressive prosecutors is going to be on trial. The whole system in Baltimore and how you go after black elected officials, black female elected officials, black liberal prosecutors all around this country, it's going to be on trial when we get there. We're going to do our best to get answers and truth and justice, not only for Marilyn Mosby, but for the citizens of Baltimore and Maryland, and this criminal justice system and the prosecutors that drive the negative narrative towards black and brown people and black female progressive prosecutors. You can bank on it. And so I'm here to thank you all for standing with us, for standing with this fight. because we just begun. You know, usually I'm pretty Natalie clad, but this is my fighting wardrobe. I know you look good, man. You know, but I'm fighting. We about to do a fight, and so this is what we got to do. And so I hope that those who are listening, I hope that those who are standing behind me, and I hope that those who believe in a fair criminal justice system, who believe in Marilyn Mosby, right? And even those that may have questions, we want you to stand with us, support us, because in the end, she is innocent until proven guilty. And the criminal justice system and the prosecutions that have wrongfully brought this case against her, they will be on trial as well. Thank you.
God is prepared to take a couple of questions. I'll start right here.
Looking at the decision to make decisions to file a COVID relief case, do you think that the U.S. Attorney was ill-advised when said this is okay? Looking at it in retrospect, was she ill-advised?
Was she ill-advised by whom?
Her legal advisors that you guys said she got advice.
No, it was her money, one. And two, she certainly got advice from professionals, right? And three, if you weren't negatively affected financially, one way or the other, directly or indirectly by COVID, right? If you weren't affected, raise your hand. If you weren't affected. If you were not affected by COVID financially, whether you kept your job or not, raise your hand.
Really quickly, I want to correct something you said. You said she got COVID relief funds, and that is not.
That is not true. This was not PPP. This was 401k. Hold on. This is relief from her 401k, not public funds.
But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was okay to request those funds. Are you saying that? So which one of these allegations does she really legitimately have on this?
I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. I'm telling you, she's not only innocent, but we have professionals who she consulted with, and she qualifies on one of those under the statute. And I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Bolden, looking at the, speaking of the COVID, using the pandemic to pull money out of it, was it for her business, was it one of her businesses that was negatively impacted? Because that's something that you had said, but her spokesperson had said that that business was not operational while she was in office as seamstress. So which one is it?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into a swearing match about that. I'm telling you that she qualified for those monies, and she was advised on those monies, and I'm not going to get into a tat of what's been said before, done, and what have you.
Is that business operational now? What's her spokesperson?
I don't know what you mean by operational. There were other businesses involved. In fact, the U.S. Attorney was investigating those other businesses, so they had to be operational.
Her spokesperson said it wasn't.
I don't know how you define operational. I'm telling you those businesses were running, and they were being pursued, and they were legally on the books. Next question.
Next question. Go ahead, right there.
Do you believe there are more charges coming? Do you have any reason to believe that this is the end of the indictment, that there could be more coming?
I have no idea, but I will tell you this. Whether more indictments come or not, our position is the same. And we certainly battled the government, the federal government, in regard to any tax implications, and I can't comment any further on that. But our position won't change.
Mr. Bolden, a public look at her businesses indicate that they never made any money, don't have any employees, never made a loss, and you were suggesting today, and I've heard you suggest on a public broadcast, that you have documentation, exculpatory evidence to exonerate her on those terms. Would you share those documents, or at least explain how she qualifies for something on a business, if that's the case, that only exists on paper?
Well, those are mutually exclusive issues. These businesses were a startup, okay? And as a result, that does not disqualify her, along with some other facts that we have to present that would certainly absolve her of any wrongdoing here. Next. Yep.
Attorney Bolden spoke specifically to the impact of African-American leadership being prosecuted unlawfully or just like a witch hunt scenario. What do you say to the young people in the African-American community who are looking to be the next Marilyn Mosby, who will end up being impacted by things of this nature?
Well, I would tell them to keep the faith, to be strong, that public leadership is not for the weary or those who want rest, to protect yourself at all times. And even then, when there are forces, darker forces, working against you because of your integrity and you making tough decisions, going against the grain, going against the establishment, unfortunately, not just here in Baltimore, but elsewhere can bring you legal scrutiny that will change your life for the rest of your life, unfortunately. You got to be careful. And even then, it's not safe.
Second question from you. I'm sorry, can I say? Yeah.
So Baltimore's crime, she's a top prosecutor. It's going to be a difficult fight. How do you ensure residents that she's going to be able to balance the litigation and maintaining, making sure that murder victims get justice?
Well, certainly arrests have to be made. I keep reading how somehow she's blamed for homicides in this country, or rather in Baltimore. She is the only blame or responsibility when someone is arrested to bring justice to them, and that is to prosecute them, right? And so I don't put the murder rate in her bailiwick. I put that in when people are arrested and good investigators do their work and they bring them and then they get prosecuted, right? And so I have every confidence, and I can tell the public every confidence she is going to completely and continue to do her job. That's one thing. And we're going to be able, the lawyers are going to do what the lawyers have to do on the defense side, and that's really not a balancing act. That just comes with being Marilyn Mosby. Well, yeah. I'm not gonna dignify your last comment. Let me just say this. I looked for the tax lien myself. Could not find it. I know you do. You know how we found it? We got it from the press. I don't know where you got it from. I'm not going to ask you where you got it from, but we certainly didn't get it. My clients didn't get it, and it wasn't delivered or to them in the normal way, if you will. I don't know about all these other additional letters, but as I've said before and I've said in writing, my client did not know about the tax liens until later, but that's irrelevant because right now the indictments don't cover any criminal tax charges. My only point is she did not know, she did not lie, and that'll come out at trial. I think that's it, right?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
That's it for questions, everybody. Really quickly, number one, thank you. Thank you to everyone standing behind me, in front of me. Particular thank you to A. Scott Bolden. Really quickly, for those who are watching, especially on our live feeds, for those who are here in the media who want to present a balanced report, there are ways that you can support, that you can square this out. We want everyone to share this press conference today if you can. Like, share, do whatever you need to do. We also need everybody to vote. Yes. Go vote. The future of our city depends on everybody out there making their voice heard and voting. Register today. We also want you to sign and share a petition in order to support what's happening. That will be posted at the end of this event. And then you can also donate to the Mosby Defense Fund at mosbydefensefund.com. I'm going to now turn this over to J. Wendell Gordon for a couple of comments just before we come to a close. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all, Robin, A. Scott Bolden, one of the finest attorneys that I know. I just want to say that at this point in our lives, we're not going to adjust to injustice. I want to say that there is an army of people who will stand by, stand with, and be with Marilyn Mosby throughout the duration of this trial. Marilyn Mosby, of course, is a friend. So is Nick Mosby. They're both friends. But I'm not here because of that friendship alone. I'm here because these two stalwarts in our community have been targeted and been under attack since some believed that there was too intense of a consolidation of power within the Mosby household. This thing goes back. You have all the alphabet soup involved in the prosecution of Marilyn Mosby. And if you remember, this didn't have anything to do with Marilyn Mosby's personal business when it first started, this entire investigation. They were investigating wrongdoing in office. When that failed, they started investigating other things, and they brought other folks involved. And at the end of the day, they were able to come up with an indictment. As A. Scott said, 4 to 5 months before she starts her campaign for re-election. So we're not fooled by what has transpired in the Marilyn Mosby case. And we're not impressed by the fact that we have this African-American U.S. attorney who has signed the pleadings on Marilyn Mosby's indictment. It started under Trump, but it ends with him. He could short-circuit it, or he can watch it play out to the end. I expect, and I believe deep down in my heart, that Marilyn Mosby will prevail against these charges. Now, I know there are a lot of questions asked, a lot of sparring going back and forth with the attorneys. And the attorneys may not be able to provide you with all the answers today because you can't give it all up in a press conference. And although we intend to litigate in the court of public opinion, the real fight occurs in the court of law. Marilyn Mosby's defense team, of which I am not a part, so you don't have to ask the question, is well fortified to engage in this type of combat, and they will prevail as well. Thank you.